Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Comic Book Chronicles. I am your host, Roddykat. You can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can find me at NewsNerdSneed on Twitter. You can find me at CBCaps on Instagram.
South Carolina with Columbia down the way.
Also, damn you, Funk, for changing TweetDeck so that it can't be used anymore unless you pay for it. Screw you, man.
Oh, no.
Screw you.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, that happened today. So, it is what it is, I guess. Now I'm just back to regular old, regular Twitter either way. Unless somebody comes up with an alternative, which I guess they can't do. Either way, the sound effects and verse you just heard come from none other than our man in Brooklyn, @agent_7 on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads.
What's up, everybody? Co-hosting from the Borough of Kings.
You know I had to keep Brooklyn on the street.
Indeed. I'm actually also on Hive, but I don't know if anybody's actually still using that. So it is what it is. And I don't use it all that much, so that's saying something. But folks, this has been the Comic Book Chronicles. Well, this is, excuse me, we ain't over yet. So we just started.
It feels like we've been recording for a week because we were just on.
I know, right? And then we've been talking for the last half hour to an hour or so. It's like, it's like I feel like we kind of been doing some things. But folks, this is the Comic Book Chronicles, and you can find this here podcast on the Coastal Podcast Network, the CSPN.us.
Do it today.
You could also find us on your podcast browser place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Coastal Podcast Network's SoundCloud page.
Make sure to click like, subscribe, and leave us all the positive 5-star reviews, especially on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah. You could also find us recording every Thursday night, which I should probably just save this for later in the show, but I'll say this now anyway. YouTube.com/TheKliqNation and Twitch.tv/Comic Book Chronicles every Thursday night, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time.
Make sure to click like, subscribe, and hit the notification button so you know when we are recording live.
Yeah. And we're actually recording live on a Thursday, even though, like Agent 70 said, we had just finished recording a couple of days prior to this. So
it's more than a few days. It's honestly more than a few days,
4
but
days,
it feels like we were just recording.
Or 5 days, I guess 5 days technically, but yeah. It was 4 days when I sent it off, but that was because I was being lazy. But yeah, so sometimes it be like that, folks, because things happen, and it wasn't even movie protocol at this point. It was pretty much hip hop all day, all night.
Yes, happy birthday again, hip hop.
Indeed. So, and we're still kind of, well, let's face it, we are hip hoppers for life. So we will never actually fully come off of the high of this, but we can get to a lower.
Right.
We can get to a low bass tone at the very least.
Right. Absolutely.
Get to a boom bap, as some would say.
Ah.
But we are here to talk about comics and in relation to, well, I was about to say in relation to hip hop, but because I know that'll probably come up at some point. But before we get into some actual books of the week, we're actually going to do a little chatting about a show that both Agent 70 and I are caught up on, and it is a quite delightful show, as I might say, because I just got caught up myself. Actually, I'll put in another show when we finish. But My Adventures with Superman is the show. We are not caught. Well, we record on Thursday, and new shows come out on Friday. So we haven't seen this week's episode yet, but we are caught up on all of the past 7, which has been some pretty good stuff, especially the last episode.
Absolutely. Very quickly. And I think we've said this before, right? What they've done is reimagined the trio of Clark, Lois, and Jimmy into relatively current times.
Mm-hmm.
And they've reimagined their dynamic as friends, as even lovers early on.
Yes. We can talk about that in a second.
Right. So it's a very interesting reimagining and updated portrayal. You know, excuse me, folks. I wanted to mention that social media does play a role in this. Within the show, and there's even some updates to characters. Some overt relationships that are established, like between sorry folks, between Monsieur Mala and the Brain.
Yes.
In episode 6. So I'll let Roddykat carry on, and I will mute and drink some water.
So yeah, on that particular that particular dynamic has been something that has been, I would almost say, toyed with within animated regions, because especially on, like, say, early on in Young Justice, if I remember correctly, and I can't remember Justice League, but definitely Young Justice. But they pretty much took it with to the, let's just say, the logical extent of that relationship between those two. Which, if you did not know, and I'm not gonna sit here and act like I know a whole lot about DC, a lot of DC characters, specifically Monsieur Mala and the Brain, and wait, is it the Brain and Monsieur Mala, or is Monsieur Mala the Brain?
I don't remember.
Yeah, either way, their dynamic was pretty close, and like I said, it is pretty cute in this particular situation, and they don't really play them. Spoiler alert for that episode, which was from last week, but they don't necessarily play them as bad guys, but as they have been in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, they're not overtly villainous,
right? Like, they're basically like you almost
they're mad scientists.
Yes. Basically, but also you could almost hear them say, "We're just trying to survive in a world that fears and hates us," almost X-Men style. Yeah,
yeah.
So, and matter of fact, there were mutants in that particular show. So I feel like there was a more overt reference to that than we may or may not know. But again, I don't know that for certain. But regardless, and that kind of opened up the door to the last episode, which is episode 7, as of this recording, where they opened up the multiverse. You might as well say. But not only that, they opened up the multiverse, but they pretty much opened the door to, well, I guess they started down the road to Lois and Clark's relationship. Which they had already been teasing since from the get-go, kind of, because they've been kind of playing footsies here and there, and then something happened during the last episode, but now they're kind of on par. So it was like they've pretty much out the gate hit the ground running on some things, but also not. In other words, like, we got Clark. We got, he's pretty much coming into his own as Superman. He doesn't know his full extent. He doesn't even know where he comes from yet. In which, in prior iterations of animated sources, he has by now.
Right.
So he's pretty much coming into it with the audience, and they're also doing something different to where. Which is actually kind of interesting in a way. They're tying things that are going around in the world to him, because there's a bunch of tech that's floating around, and I feel pretty confident that they're going to say it's Kryptonium, because they've been kind of tap dancing around it for this whole time.
Yeah, that's another way they've kind of revised the Superman story, is that a lot of the tech that's floating around and a lot of the tech that creates his villains is Kryptonian based.
Right, including a certain assassin who is normally associated with the Bat,
the Titans.
And the Titans, yes, is in play in this during this thing. Who is also associated with actually, yeah, the whole, speaking of the guests, because they brought up Cadmus during that Brain and Mr. Masala episode. I was like, okay. So there's a thing. Like, are we going to eventually get like Connor or something? Probably not, or anytime soon. But they already, you know.
I mean, we're probably going to get the Suicide Squad because they've already brought up Task Force X.
Right, and that's what I was getting to before I mentioned that. Right.
Yeah, I love that Roddykat had a slip of the tongue and called him Monsieur Marsala. So I'm like, right. So is he? So is Roddykat fiending for Indian food right now? Anyway,
I could go for some curry any day almost, but yeah.
Listen, I could too. I kind of chuckled at that. I'm like, oh, okay. There's a little, you know,
it happens every time that character.
Hungry. Right. There's a hint at who might be hungry right now, folks.
Right. Every time that character comes up, I always kind of that slip is almost bound to be there. But so yeah, like I said, the liberties they are taking with this iteration of Superman, it's almost anime. And I feel like the inspiration is there, even in the art style, which is, you know, pretty much close to it. And I think I've said this before, is that the art style is kind of reminiscent of the Voltron Netflix show.
Yes. Yeah, you have mentioned that. So I think you're spot on with that.
Mm-hmm. So there, even the tone of the show is kind of taking a similar. I'm not sure if it's the same company behind it or whatnot, but I feel like the tone of the show is kind of there. And we also got seeds of a certain big bad who is probably lurking around in the background somewhere, but you know, they're taking their time with that. I don't know how many episodes we're going to get in the season, but like I said, they're, you know, they've already pretty much opened up, giving us you know, the main characters, you know, opening inspirations. There is going to be a couple more revelations to be had, and just like in certain iterations of things, like who knows what about who, they pretty much kind of got rid of that out the gate early, also almost in an MCU type fashion.
Right. So
it's like, okay, well, you know, secret identities are overrated, I guess. Not really, but hey, you know, I don't know if they were going to be able to tease that out too much longer the way they were going with it. But also, like I said, everything is serving a purpose here, and it's been pretty good so far. I've been enjoying the heck out of it. And like I said, especially the last episode, if you haven't seen it, with let's Agent 70 talk a little bit about who is involved with that, because I'm going to call him Clay. Whereas classically he, you know, they have pronounced a name that he comes up in the Superman mythos, and I guess by proxy this is the Super Friends, comes up quite often, but has been pronounced different ways.
Yeah, you know what? They went really hard on this particular pronunciation this episode. Like, you could hear everyone enunciating the name.
Mm-hmm. It's like they were just getting every syllable, every letter of that one.
Right. And, you know, and it's funny because I watched it and I messaged Roddykat, you know, off the air, behind the scenes. And when he finally got around to it, Roddykat could not help but agree that, yes, they really went at it hard.
Yeah. It's like they really want people to know that this is how it is. I'm like, all right, we get it. I'm still going to call them the quote unquote the classic name, but
right.
But yes, you know, I'm glad they have it out there, because I know that has been a thing that has come up every other moon or so. It's like, how do you pronounce dude's name? Because you only see it, you realistically only see it, and you rarely ever hear it. You know, and the only other times you ever hear it is with certain versions of Superman when they're trying to, or the Super Friends when they're trying to get him to say his name backwards or something.
Right. I want to say they had the pronunciation on Adventures of Superman.
Probably.
So I think so, because I remember, I hate to say this, and this is obviously very revealing about some of my college life, but I remember a particular friend of mine who was on the weekly comic book trip, comic book store trip.
Right.
Was a big DC fan, and I remember this debate on how to pronounce it, because I kept using the Super Friends as proof that that was the way to pronounce it.
Yes, as we of a certain vintage do.
Right. And he was obviously the same vintage, so he understood, but I want to say I think he had like a different source that had a different pronunciation. And I want to say some comic book writer came out and said, use the pronunciation that we heard in this past week's episode.
Right. Okay, so I just pulled up, I'm not going to play it just yet, but I just pulled up a video. No, wait.
Mm-hmm.
Here it is. Hold on. It's going to, yeah, never mind. It's going to give a thing first. But of course, there are pronunciation videos out there, and I'm curious as to what they might say.
Sure.
I don't think it's going to play, actually. Hold on.
Mr. Mixie Spitlick.
Yeah, that's not right either.
Mr. Mixie Spitlick.
That's kind of close to what they say, though.
Yeah.
Mr. Mixie Spitlick.
I think she's going a little, yeah, she's kind of emphasizing part that they don't.
Yeah, the S part, yeah.
Yeah. But it's pretty much similar.
Yeah.
And actually, hold on. I'm sorry, this is derailing the show.
Nuts!
Okay, no, that's the
Shout out to
Adventures-
Gilbert Gottfried.
Right, that was the Adventures with the animated series version of of Mr. Plick. I think Plick's it. So anyway, just not to belabor that, it's some good stuff if you haven't had a chance to check out my adventures with Superman, because it's a pretty good version of the show.
Yeah, it's worth checking out. It is pretty, at this point, very kid friendly too.
Mm-hmm.
So younger viewers are able to watch this so far. There's not much. The violence is very animated and not very graphic. So it's very, very, I think, kid friendly so far.
Yeah, totally. And like that, it also has a bit of an anime feel to it. So for those who are one way about it. I mean, at this point, the cross section of anime fans and superhero fans is kind of joined at a point. So,
I mean, at the end of the day, the influence of Japanese animation has really entrenched itself in all of animation. So we're bound to see, unless they're overtly trying to maintain a non-anime look, we're bound to see some influences.
Right. And speaking of which, if we are finished with Superman,
yes,
I'm going to talk very briefly about Mech Cadets. Now, we recorded a few days ago, and I'm pretty much reiterating some of the things I've said then, but I have at least watched an episode and a half or a bit. Oh wait, well, I'll tell you. I was something I was gonna say about the Superman real quick. Was that as I was telling Agent 70, is the dude who plays Clark Kent Superman is the same one who plays Boimler on Star Trek Lower Decks, and he kind of sounds similar in both. There's little inflection differences and whatnot between the different characters, but it pretty much sounds similar, the same. And as Agent 70 said before the show, like as people probably know, that's Dennis Quaid's and Meg Ryan's son. Which I wasn't
Jack
sure
Quaid,
about.
who's also a lead on The Boys, and he sounds
Right.
exactly the same on The Boys.
Right. So, and I remember him saying that before, but I've never watched The Boys, so there was that. But it's just kind of funny because I just finished watching Star Trek Lower Decks or season 3 before going into finishing catching up on my adventures with Superman. And it was like, yeah, this is kind of crazy to hear, but also I was like, yeah, well, sure, why not? I mean, you could kind of make a case for his Clark Kent and Superman doesn't sound that much different, also, which could potentially kind of put you in a way if you were of a certain vintage. Because let's face it, you could say that about some of the other ones, but at least some of the other ones we've had been exposed to,
Right.
I feel a little bit more like you can tell a tone shift in the way they talk.
Yeah.
In certain cases, and this one is not as there as much.
No,
But-
it's definitely not. It's noticeable that there's only a very slight. Sorry, didn't mean to hit that. Wasn't me. as the song says. But what should I call it? You know, it's like he started out trying to do the tone shift, but maybe now that certain things have happened in the show, there, you know, he may not be doing it as often. Let's just say.
Or he may not have to, given who he's around, I guess.
Exactly. That's what I mean when I say that.
Right. So either way, it's still kind of like, well, I guess that's if that is the way they're playing it, then sure, it kind of works, but it's also slightly off-putting to certain people, you know, to certain fans, I guess, or could be, I should say. So anyway, like I was saying before I went off on that one, Mech Cadets. So Mech Cadets is the animated adaptation of Greg Pak and Takeshi Miyazawa's Boom Studios book from 2017-2018. We talked about this, like I said, on the last show. It is now out on Netflix, 10 episodes for a season, I'm thinking. I don't know. I don't know if there are plans for another season, but like I said, 10 episodes are out there already. I watched a couple, and they have, as I was telling Agent 70, they have definitely taken liberties with the retelling of the story, because there are some things that if you read, or especially if you read like I have fairly recently, Mech Cadet U, which is what they're adapting, there's some very deep changes. There's some very, I shouldn't say deep, that's a little dramatic, but there's a lot of changes even starting off that are different from the book.
Sure.
Which tends to happen when they're you know, when things get adapted from a comic book or a manga, or you know, a manga into anime. Sometimes you get some extra stuff going into some filler or whatever, because maybe they definitely kind of sort of accelerated a couple of times on timelines, and they definitely changed to some. It changed the character motivation, I'll say, because I know Agent 70 hasn't necessarily seen it, but if his memory of Mech Cadet U is still fairly strong, he'll understand what I'm talking about right off the bat. Right.
I look forward to finally starting it. I literally just before we started recording, in our pre-production meeting, queued up Mech Cadets on Netflix. So, you know, I will endeavor to watch it and not hike you for the 795th time this weekend.
No, because you got movies coming up, so you can. I'm sure you can you can hold off on that until one of them pop off.
Right.
But yeah, outside of that, it's still pretty good. Like I said, for the basic stuff is still kind of there. Like I said, they changed the looks of characters. They changed a character motivation or two. They even added another character that wasn't in the book, as I recall. And I don't know what part they're going to play in the grand stream of things, but they are there. Which again, like I said, sometimes in adaptation that tends to happen. Or sometimes, heck, in live action that tends to happen, because you know, Walking Dead has characters running around who died pretty early, but we're still going strong for a good while. So that tends to happen. It doesn't, as far as I can tell, it doesn't take away from things. It was just kind of jarring to me as like I said, having just read the book going into Mech Cadets, which we talked about last show. It was kind of weird to see, having it being that fresh in my mind, and you know, and seeing what they put on the screen.
Sure.
But hopefully, as I think Agent 70 said, like last show, I would like to believe everything is going partially according to Greg Pak's vision, who does have consulting, I think a consulting producer credit on the show. I don't know if he's got executive also, but I would imagine he should, but I don't know if that's the case or not. But like I said, it is good stuff, and it is good to watch. The animation style is pretty much like the Ultraman series that was on Netflix. It's probably the same people, I can almost try to say, and almost kind of like the Into the Spider-Verse in a way, because it looks like it's at a different frame rate, almost noticeably in spots. But that's how some of that stuff kind of works out. That's not a detraction. I'm just saying it's noticeable. So it's some good stuff if you get a chance to watch it. If you know about, even if you don't know about Mech Cadet U, honestly. If you're a fan, like I said last time, if you're a fan of like Gundam or mecha anime, stuff like that, I think you will like this. I can safely say that much for having seen as much as I've seen. Like I said, they do kind of just like with Superman, they do kind of hit the ground running on some stuff that kind of comes later. But as far as I'm can telling, well, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't distract as much. It's just some of it's just kind of weird to see early, before it shows up. So. And that's
Okay.
and that's Mech Cadets. On now, we're going to get into some comic books.
Yes, we're getting into the comic books of the week.
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice.
And our first comic book of the week is Alpha Flight #1 of 5. This is a book that is being published in the wake of Fall of X. It's written by Ed Brisson with art by Scott Godlewski. Colors are by Matt Milla and letters are by VC's Travis Lanham. So I really should pull this as a sound effect. I you know what? I need to write it down. Because you know what? That's what I do, folks, when I think of these things. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Guess what? This may very well be a surprise click of the week pick for me. It is in the running because of how this story is told. Without spoiling it, there is kind of a twist. Well, it's not a surprising twist, but it's a twist nevertheless. And you see a group of essentially core Alpha Flight members acting against type for seemingly no good reason, and we find out that was not necessarily the case at the end.
Yes, as I told Agent 70, or as Agent 70 agreed with me in our pre-show, this is definitely giving shades of the original X Factor.
Right, we had two different takes on it.
Mm-hmm.
Roddykat's take was that it was shades of the original X Factor. I saw hints of the original Thunderbolts first issue.
Right.
Because of the last page reveal.
Right. And I took that last page reveal as the X Factor stuff that I just mentioned, which both could be, both still work in this case.
Right. Both work in this situation. So, but yeah, I mean, bottom line is, I rather enjoyed reading it because it was kind of fun, kind of reintroducing some Alpha Flight concepts, bringing in characters from outside of Alpha Flight and giving them some shine here, like Dawkin, who's now going by a different code name.
Yes. I agree with Puck about the name, but hey.
Right. Well, I mean, what's funny is that it's a mantle.
True. I guess that's true.
It's a mantle. That's a character name that does not come from Earth, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
It actually comes from the Imperial Guard.
Right, the Shi'ar, yeah.
So it's interesting that he would pick up that particular mantle or code name and costume.
Right. Yeah, I thought it was kind of weird too. I was like, okay, sure. I'm sure they're going to get into it, or maybe they won't.
Right.
I found it funny, although I guess I wasn't sure about this at the beginning because it's Ed Brisson. Ed Brisson, as we to kind of know him, does a lot of action stuff. I believe he did the Aliens and/or Predator books.
Right.
I can't remember. Can't remember if he did Punisher at one point in time, but because a lot of his stuff reads kind of more action stuff and kind of gets into it. And not saying that there's no action here, so it was kind of funny that he was on this book because I was like, okay, so how are they doing? How does Alpha Flight fit with his writing style? And turns out it worked pretty well.
Right.
Not saying that Ed Brisson's one note, but it's like sometimes if you see somebody writing, or if you get people writing a certain way, then you kind of get some of that. Like we learned that lesson from Al Ewing with Immortal because we knew him prior to Immortal Hulk as being a little bit more jokey, funny stuff. But then he did, Immortal Hulk, and I was like, whoa, this is more horror, more kind of horror suspense type stuff, and it's like that's quite different from him. So,
Right.
People can have range. It's not saying it's just that you get to know a creator for a note, and you get to know him at that note. So, that being said, yeah, Alpha Flight is pretty good. It's a potential click of the week for me as well. Like I said, the whole whatever they're doing with the whole X Factor / Thunderbolts thing is kind of interesting. They're also it's pulling from legacy Alpha Flight characters, of which some I don't know because I was never really a big Alpha Flight fan. Like
Right. Like I was about to say, I'm like Gamma Flight or Alpha Flight or Omega Flight. I was like, wow, this is deep cuts, man.
Right. So it's like, okay, even down to a mutant that happens to come up who I guess was in hiding up until now, who's kind of on the run. I was like, wait, who is this person? Is this somebody new? No, apparently not. Apparently not. And then they kind of mentioned it later on. It's all, yeah, we're running against old teammates, and I was like, yeah, I guess so. I'll take your word for it. But just like the Avengers, the Alpha Flight has their own, or the front-facing version of Alpha Flight, I should say, has their own Gyric / Val. I can't remember Val's last name.
Cooper,
thank you. I knew you would have me on that one, but they pretty much have their own Cooper / Gyric heading them up. I was like, yeah, you couldn't get any more overt with that if you tried. So. We see what you're doing there. And we also get to find out where at least some contingent of mutancy may possibly be or will be. Because we've been getting shades of that, especially with we know there are some, on Araco, and as of last week's Immortal, we know there are some somewhere. We still don't necessarily know where they are. But also, thanks to Alpha Flight, it's like we get there's some others that are elsewhere, or it could be potentially some places elsewhere, which kind of also goes back to a previous version of the next book that we're going to talk about in a minute, actually.
Right.
So I don't know. That being said, you got anything else on Alpha Flight?
No. We can move on. But like I said, this is definitely a candidate for Click of the Week for me.
Mm-hmm. Same here. And with that, we move on to the other new #1 of the book, which is also mutant adjacent.
Well, there's a couple of new #1s this week because of the Fall of X tie-ins. But this is probably one of the main, because it was a subject of the Free Comic Book Day book this year. That being Uncanny Avengers #1 of 5. So we said earlier that Alpha Flight is #1 of 5. Uncanny Avengers is also #1 of 5. This is written by Jerry Duggan with art by Javier Garron, colors by Maury Hollowell, and letters by VC's Travis Lanham. So this issue does, in fact, pick up X number of weeks after the Hellfire Gala, and things are not looking very good for our heroes. The first thing that we pick up with is possibly the creation of the new Captain Krakoa, and we have our theories as to who that might be. And then we pick up on something I didn't really understand. I didn't know Ben Urich owned the Daily Bugle now.
I didn't either. I said the exact same thing in my notes. I'm like, when did that happen?
Yeah, I was like, what?
I wonder if it happened after he got his. I'm assuming because I don't know, but because we know Jay Jonah's not in it, so it could have happened well before now. It just nothing that ever has come up until now. I guess I don't know.
Right. I just couldn't remember. I thought Robbie had it.
Exactly. That was my thought also.
Oh, you know what it is? I think Robbie doesn't own it. He's the publisher.
Okay. Yeah. But
because Jonah was the owner and publisher, and I think Robbie's the publisher. I just did not know who owned the Bugle now.
Right. I'm pretty sure if we did a quick search, we could find out when that is. But yeah, I did not know
Rob's
that either.
probably like the publisher or the editor, but now Ben Urich is the owner. I'm like, whoa.
Right, because when they mentioned that in this, I'm like, wait, what? When did that happen?
Right.
So, but regardless, we find ourselves once again. Cap is leading up a Unity squad, and at the very least one, I think two from the previous squad is back on the team. That being Rogue.
Right, Rogue and Deadpool.
Yeah, Deadpool too, also, and he gives reasons why at least one of them is on there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hey, Rogue is beyond reproach, so it stands to reason, but we don't necessarily get that. Outside of that, we pretty much get what they're going up against. We do get a call back to, was it Immortal where that meeting took place? In the tunnels? I can't remember. Or was that from the gala? I can't remember. This stuff is running.
Yeah, it's hard to remember. Yeah, exactly. Everything's running very back to back, running up against each other, so they're all blending together.
Right.
So, but yeah, that happened recently. So yeah, we have another view of this meeting in the Morlock tunnels.
Right, which pretty much kind of gets us time adjacent to where we are in this whole thing, as Agent 70 said. So the one thing we don't get to see, or we didn't get to see, but we, as Agent 70 said, we have speculation on, is who Captain Krakoa is, and the fact that he himself is putting together a new brotherhood, a new mutant liberation front,
right?
as it is said here. But yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. I think I know who that is. If I'm wrong, then so be it. But I think this new, and we don't necessarily, we have hints to the case, but we don't necessarily know. I think this new Captain Krakoa is Hydra Cap.
Right, and I think Roddykat has a good case, and I think there are definite hints. Everything from his recruitment of the Von Strucker twins to, and what he says about them, and a couple of visual cues as well. So I think Roddykat is on the right track here.
Like it makes complete sense. The only thing I didn't know is like where was Hydra Cap at the end of Secret Empire, because I think I either drew a blank or just totally forgot or whatever.
Right. Right. And we read too many comics, folks, so we're just kind of like, oh, we kind of don't remember,
There is that. So, but other than that, a good start to this issue, with the exception of what happens at the last page, which both Agent 70 and I pretty much said the same thing, and that is, ow.
Yeah. Yeah. Not happy about that. Things, Duggan, this better be fixed by the end of the series.
Well, I don't know if they can use Krakoa medicine given the state of it, unless they have that fixed by then. So,
right.
But we shall see. Otherwise, like I said, Uncanny Avengers #1, pretty good start. And I think we're going to go to one more, which was, well, actually, I don't know. Do you want to do Dark X-Men, or do you want to go ahead and just do Spidey?
We can do Spidey.
Okay.
We can do Spidey because Dark X-Men is,
yeah.
Yeah. So Spider-Man, we'll jump over to Spider-Man number 11. It's written by Dan Slott with art by Luciano Vecchio. Might have misspelled his first name. Colors by Edgardo Delgado. And letters by our favorite lettering paisan, VC's Joe Caramagna. There's a name I will never misspell because we are always saying Joe Caramagna is lettering Marvel book. So,
specifically Spider-Man corner.
Yes, specifically in the Spidey corner. Guess what, folks? Spider-Boy is a thing. This issue tells us what we have supposedly missed this entire time.
Yes.
If you wanted to find out what his story was, this is the issue to read. And that is the point of this issue.
Yeah, as I told, as I didn't tell Agent 70 earlier, he's got his, as I say in my notes, he's got his old Hot Mood entry ready to go, thanks to this issue.
Oh, yeah.
But we also get some backstory and a little bit of heavy lifting going into his upcoming series. So that Slott doesn't have to do any of that there, although I'm pretty sure he'll call back to some of it. Because they've been teasing out with this and last week's Amazing Spider-Man 31 kind of been teasing things to happen in that book. So
right.
But yeah, this is pretty much that. Like, just like if you wanted to know about this character's backstory within a certain range, I'm sure the origin is going to happen in Spider-Boy, but we pretty much got everything leading up into that, so that, like I said, that doesn't have to happen there.
Right.
And
just a quick note. Oh, you wanted to add something?
Go ahead.
I wanted to say a quick note at the end of the book. The editorial team helped us out by mentioning what's coming up.
Yes.
And made it clear that Spider-Man, the adjectiveless Spider-Man title, is taking a month off. We will not see a book in September, but we'll see I guess a double-sized or extra-sized issue in October.
Right.
And in the meantime, they also mention that the Spider-Boy book is going to launch, as well as the Superior book. And Slott is taking the reins. He's dipping his toe back into the Spider Corner. Like, forget toe. He's diving in feet first in the Spider Corner of the Marvel Universe.
Indeed. And actually, speaking of feet first, there was a question that was answered in this particular issue that has long plagued me about Spider characters. However, it still doesn't answer. It only answers in one case. It doesn't answer in every other case.
Right. It doesn't answer Miles or Gwen
Peter.
when she's wearing Chucks.
Or Peter. Because they even reference Peter's. Go back to reference Peter's
appearance.
Or when he first uses his spider powers.
It's his first appearance.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah.
In Amazing Fantasy. Yeah.
Right. So when I got to that point, I was like, okay, finally, here we go, and then it goes back to an age-old fix for everything in the Marvel Universe, or used to be an age-old fix for everything in the Marvel Universe. Unstable molecules.
Reed Richards fixes everything.
Yeah, unstable freaking molecules.
We talk a lot of smack about Reed nowadays. Everyone's like, oh, Reed's a jerk, and he kind of has been his entire life in comics. But he's very handy at fixing things.
Yeah. So I don't know if I should commend Slott on that or be like, okay, I see what you did. Whether that was intentional or not, I see what you did there.
I think it was partially still done tongue in cheek.
Yeah. But he also took
without
it back
without revealing how everyone else's works.
Right. Well, yeah. Because they don't even know. They just gave this one. I was like, well, we know that can't be for everybody. We know that has not been the case for everybody. They don't even they don't even try to hide it or even go into it. But the fact that he brought it up himself, kind of says a lot. And went to try to explain it was pretty funny. So I was like, okay, Slott, props to you still for that. Even though it's still some BS because it still doesn't explain the others. So yeah, but that's what I'm saying. The only thing I can say about this issue is that get ready for Spider-Boy, and also you see a couple of channels. You see a couple of characters channeling other properties. Let's just say because Daredevil channels Morpheus. with something he says. Spider-Man channels Joe Esposito, and if you are young, you don't know who it is, look it up because you are the best. Well, you're not the best around, but that's his song.
No, I didn't recognize the reference, but I obviously recognize the Karate Kid part.
Yes, and I was like, okay, that was a 1-2 there. That was like, I think Slott was pretty much having fun with that particular part of this issue, which, like I said, made it, more fun than it probably needed to be, despite what was going on here. And and we also got a bit of an MCU moment in this. With do a flip Spider-Man or Spider-Boy.
I did see that. Yes, I did see that.
So it's like, okay, so we're just getting all the check boxes, including a villain that shows up. We're just hitting a bunch of check boxes with this episode, which is the issue. So I'm like, you know what? I wanted to hate this, and it is what it is, but it was still kind of fun enough to be like, all right, you slide.
Yeah, it was an enjoyable read, as Roddykat mentioned. It was kind of like, I wish it wasn't so fun,
right? Because
Spider-Boy is just annoying. But what are you gonna do?
But it's Slott, and he knows what he's, in cases like this, he's pretty much, he's having fun, right. and he knows what he's doing here. So I'm like, all right, well done, Slott. Well done.
Yes, absolutely. All right.
That being said, we can go on to the rapid fires.
Yes, I will spin up the minigun for rapid fire comic book reviews.
I ain't got time to bleed.
All right, Roddykat and I have actually most of my remaining books in common, so he will chime in as I go through them. First up is Tales of the Titans number 2 of 4. It's written by Tini Howard with art by Eleonora Carlini, colors by Lee Luffridge, and letters by Troy Peteri. This is the second of these Tales of the Titans books. Last issue, the first issue, put the spotlight on Starfire. This issue, the spotlight is on Raven. And there is a pretty clever way. Tini Howard comes up with a clever way of recounting what Raven's origin was initially told, how it was initially told. And puts a twist on it to bring Raven into the story that's being told in this issue. And I like that. I really did. There were a couple things revealed that I did not know. Much like Ben Urich being the owner of the Daily Bugle, I did not know that Raven, spoiler alert, has a sibling in the DC comic book universe.
Right.
I was like, since when? But I get it. It's something probably very recent. So, but I enjoyed this issue. It was a lot of fun seeing the Titans growing up to a certain extent. That was a theme here in this issue. Being no longer being or thinking of themselves as teens, but rather as Titans.
Right. Because this is basically taking place, quote unquote, currently, where they're pretty much taking over for the Justice League.
Right. Anything else to add?
Yeah, the only thing I'm going to add to this is...
Wait, you have to focus.
I thought you were gonna put in Azarath Metreon Zinthos.
That's what I was going for, but I didn't get the right. I downloaded it, but I didn't have time to cut it, so I just got. There's a video out there for everything, so there's just a bunch of her saying that.
Gotcha. Azarath Metreon Zinthos. I make her sound more Greek than she is. But in any event, next up, Dark X-Men number 1 of 5. It's written by Steve Fox, with art by Jonas Scharf, colors by Frank Martin, and letters by VC's Clayton Cowell. So this is an interesting view of the events of Fall of X from the viewpoint of the Limbo contingent. I was like, oh, that's right. There is a limbo contingent. I completely forgot about them. And so this is where a lot of the misfits that we're kind of used to seeing, on the fringes of comic book stories have come to take hold and take root. And this is their story of how they're dealing with the fall of X, and more info on what Madelyne Pryor is up to, and more references to a character called the Goblin Queen. We don't know who's calling themselves Goblin Queen nowadays. I thought of Roddykat when I saw that on the last page.
Yeah, I thought of that too. I was like, geez, now we got another one. I mean, granted, she was the original, so, and then there's this other one that came across recently in the Spidey books, and then now this, I'm going to assume, is a clone of her. I'm going to assume, but we don't know what's going on with that yet, so, yeah.
Right, we don't know that. And last for me is Daredevil number 14. It's written by Chip Zdarsky with art by Marco Cacchetto, colors by Matthew Wilson, and letters by VC's Clayton Cowles. This is the ending of Zdarsky's run on Daredevil. It also serves as kind of a coda to the run because it takes place, there's a little bit of a time jump. It takes place a little bit after the events of Daredevil number 13, where things are kind of left up in the air. And Daredevil 14 brings us to, a point in time where things have settled down a little bit, and some of the toys, proverbially, right, have been put back into the toy box. Some of them remain out in the playing field, changed by the events of Zdarsky's story. I think the story, I think the grounds for a good story are there now for Saladin Ahmed to pick up when he starts his run. Because, as I said, some of the toys have been put back into the toy box, but some of the toys that stay in play, and at least for now stay changed, are still in play for future stories. So we will see how this all plays out in the next volume of Daredevil. But I like this issue. It is actually, there's a couple of really good character sequences and character interactions that really put it up there as a candidate for Click of the Week for me. So it is a co-candidate for Click of the Week for me. I will hopefully come up with a winner when it comes down to it. But that's it for me this week. Off to Roddykat for the rest of his books.
And you got to wonder if, like, sometimes I know writers talk, so I'm sure there might have been something like, "Hey, leave this out here so I can use this in my run or something." Or they might even suggest, it's like, yeah, just go ahead and throw that in there so I can kind of do my thing type of situation. So I would assume something like that happened in this case.
Right.
Batman Superman World's Finest number 18 starts off my books. We have written by Mark Waid with art by Travis Moore, colors by Tamara Bonvillain, and letters by Steve Wands. This is a potential Click of the Week for me because, hey, if you wanted to know how the world's greatest detective and the Man of Steel first meet and start working together, well, at least in this particular instance of the universe, this starts that arc off in a slightly kind of familiar way, especially if you think about how things progressed. Not the same way, but in let's say the current DC movie universe. Not necessarily the exact same way, because there was no Martha, none of that, and no Lex Luthor, none of that other way. But like I said, there is some similar, for lack of a better word, posturing on both sides, and some, they feel each other out in the ways that they do and they can. In fact, I think some of it may possibly mirror the actual Batman Superman World's Finest animated movie from back when both of those were on the air, when Batman and Superman were both on the air on TV. But I haven't seen that in so long that I can't remember. But I feel like there is some similarities there. Regardless, it was a pretty good read. The Riddler is involved. There's something to do with Kryptonian writing, and which means that someone's pretty much pulling the Riddler strings, and we seemingly find out who that may or may not be at the end of this issue. It is someone that I'm not too familiar with, but Superman kind of is in a certain place. So there is that. Next book for me, Hawk Girl number 2 of 6. Excuse me. Written by Jadzia Axelrod. I keep wanting to call her Dax, and I apologize for that. Art by Amin K. Nahulpan, and letters by Hassan Atsmane Alwao. So apparently, Assassin's Creed and by extension Ubisoft is in the DC universe because there's a character that references the Assassin's Creed series. So, if that is something, then there you go, folks. But this is the continuing adventures of one Kendra. I forgot Kendra's last name, but basically, Hawk Girl, whose name is Kendra, Kendra, whatever her name is, I can't remember right now, and what she's dealing with currently, in the guise of a new villain that she has met this particular issue called Vulpecula. And if that name in the parts of that name sounds familiar or sounds pretty much gives you an idea of what that character is, you would be right. But also this character is on the hunt for Nth Metal because she's trying to get to the Nth World for some odd reason, which of course is going to run her afoul of Hawk Girl, who has wings and a mace made out of the stuff. So, there was going to be a meeting at some point. But also along for the ride is this new character called Galaxy, who, if you're watching the video version, you can see on the cover. And Kendra and this character kind of become friends, sort of. Or at least Galaxy helps her out with the situation. And also they kind of get to kind of know each other a little bit more. So, what's going to happen to this character after this particular limited series, don't know, but we'll see what happens with this whole thing. Next up is Star Wars Darth Vader number 37. Here we go. Written by Greg Pak, with art by Rafaela Ienco, colors by Federico Blee, and letters by VC's Joe Caramagna. So this whole Dark Droids thing is still going on, which I guess this pretty much told me partially where all of this is coming from, and maybe it might be something I may have missed, because after that whole Force Wave affair happened, there were some droids that was attacking Darth Vader, and he might be the catalyst for some of the stuff that's been going on with that whole droid cult thing. But apparently they're still looking for him, and they're still taking over Imperial ships. So Vader is pretty much tasked to go liberate the executor, that has been taken over, or mostly taken over by this droid cult. For whatever reason that they're doing such things for. During the course of this, he has to remember his old Jedi training thanks to his other droid that's working with him. And we come to find out, well, knew this, but one Maz Kanata, lackey to the Emperor, is still trying to get rid of Vader, as it were. Whether under orders from the Emperor or not, I can't remember, but I believe it was. So, which leads to something that happens at the end of this, that's going to need to be taken care of in the next issue. And the last book for myself is Iron Man Annual #1 or Iron Man Annual 2023 #1, which continues this whole contest of chaos thing that has been going on with various annuals. There's 2 stories here. They are connected, but the first main story is written by Jason Liu with art by David Cutler. Color artist Brian Valenza, and letters for the whole thing is VC's Joe Caramagna. The second story, which is the backup, is that's a typo. All right, that's what you get for Russian, folks. Stephanie Williams is the writer, art by Alberto Face, and colors by Raul Angulo. So, the first main story is pretty much Iron Man versus Storm. Actually, I don't even know what they're fighting for over or with. We just know there's as the same thing that happened with the with Spider-Man Annual from last week. 2 people enter, 1 leaves, and I would dare say that the fight pretty much ends the way you think it would in that pairing. I was kind of worried there for a second because I was like, wait a minute, you're not going to do this. But if you know me and you know my leanings in this situation, you know who I think should have been the one to win here. The funny thing about it is you get to find out that Aurora and Tony kind of have a couple of things in common. One being not so much of a love of caves, you know, given their various dealings with enclosed spaces. Mm-hmm. And also, probably not surprisingly, one Black Panther because of their dealings with them, which almost kind of leads to the fight, with the exception of the fact that there are some voices that were in their heads that were kind of stoking on everything. So, but Aurora brings up something that I thought was very pressing and poignant to me, and that is, she asked Tony, who gave you the authority to kill Bill Foster? Because basically they spent a whole part of the time before the fight actually started bringing up old shit, which is kind of amusing to see and hear. But her bringing that up was like, yeah, that's right. So, I had fun with it, obviously, because y'all know if you've been here long enough, you know how I feel about that whole Bill Foster situation. That being said, like I said, the fight ends a certain way, and one is the quote unquote victor and gets swept away. And then we go into the backup story, which goes back to Spider-Man and Jessica Jones, kind of basically on the case. They get wind of Iron Man and Storm's fight as they try to investigate what's going on here, and they find that they need a little more magical help than either both of them have. So they go to the Sorcerer Supreme, and not the one that you first think of in this situation. So that is that. And that is my books for the week. Kliqs of the week.
Kliqs of the week.
We didn't get anything from other folks, but you know they're busy or
yes,
doing other things.
And behind on reading.
There is that, yes. So, and there's a couple of books we didn't get because otherwise there was a couple other books that I probably would have read by now, and 8 to 7A also. Now that I think about it, so there is that. But from what we have, we got some strong candidates. Did you finally come down on yours, or are you still kind of mulling it over?
I think I'm going to go with Daredevil #14, but I did really like Alpha Flight #1. It was, as I said, pretty enjoyable, and I love the last twist. I just think that the coda aspect of it being a coda to the run by Zdarsky, which has spanned like 2 volumes of Daredevil. Mm-hmm. Multiple volumes of Daredevil. So I think it was 3 now. But bottom line though is, it served as a nice cap to the run and provides a place for the next run to jump off from. So Daredevil #14 for me.
Alrighty. For myself, it's boiling down to Batman Superman World's Finest #18. because it was good to see another version of them, coming together, and it's actually making me want to go back and watch that World's Finest movie, and some more of Superman animated series, because there's not a whole lot that I can recall in my head, except for stuff that kind of gets referenced in Justice League. And there is also Uncanny Avengers, and also Alpha Flight, which were pretty strong contenders. Iron Man Annual, based on how it kind of ended up, I did like that also, but yeah, between Alpha Flight, Uncanny, and Batman Superman, to which I told Age of 70 this was going to be a surprise pick, and I don't know if it would be if I did go with the one I'm thinking of at this point. But that's kind of where I'm leaning towards. Weirdly enough. But you know what? No. I'm going to go with actually Alpha Flight number 105.
Nice.
But shout out to Batman Superman World's Finest number 18, because that was, like I said, I enjoyed that, and a pretty great bit. And with that, as I pull up the actually, I'm gonna pull up this alternate cover, this variant cover, which is a callback. We're going to go into the news, but first let's get an ad read.
Our first ad read of the night is for Wink, the personalized wine club. Wink is a world of wine delivered right to your door. From rosé to cabernet to torronté, Wink has over 100 styles of wine to discover. Ever try an orange wine? Wink connects you to a world of exclusive wines tailored to your taste and delivered directly to your door. Wink delivers 4 bottles of wine to you every month with free shipping. You can pick your own bottles or let Wink choose and matched to your taste. It doesn't cost a thing to become a member, and you can skip or cancel anytime. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can enjoy an exclusive discount of $20 off your first order. To place your first order with $20 off and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us/wink. That's cspn.us/WINC. Wink wines through CSPN. Do it today. And now we get into the news.
I still gotta fix it. Man, I hate this. Anyway, Cinematic News, folks, as we get into the news section, and I fixed this. 1993's Mario movie is coming back to theaters in 4K. You know, folks, I'm just going to say, as a person who has watched that movie at the very least once, it ain't a great movie, but it's a pretty good movie for reasons.
I honestly don't think I've ever made it all the way through. I don't think I've ever actually started watching it with the intent of finishing it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was just on at times, and I just probably flipped through it.
Right. It's something to behold if you have not. And actually, it says here that Crunchyroll reports that Japan is set to mark the occasion. Wait, hold on a second. Yeah, no, okay, never mind. I thought something was tripping here. Yeah, Crunchyroll reports that Japan is set to mark the occasion with a celebratory screening of the 4K re-release of Super Mario Brothers movie. This movie in Japan is known as Super Mario Goddess of the Demon Empire when it hits the theaters over there. And it says that apparently there's a Neon Flex poster that's worth checking out, even if you're not in Japan, which that doesn't, and it's nothing for us over here in the States. But if those who are not in the know, that was a movie that was starring Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo as Mario and Luigi, respectively. Dennis Hopper played President Koopa. yeah, there was a princess in there that wasn't Peach. It was Daisy. Yeah, it was a whole thing, folks. It was a whole thing. If you haven't watched it by now, now that it's getting re-released, and I'm pretty sure it's going to get a home release also, you can experience the, let's say, magic for yourself. It's probably a good movie if you're under some effect. Let me stop. No, I'm not even gonna put that out there. This is family.
No, no.
Not really. But yeah, it would make more sense if you didn't look into it too seriously, and it doesn't make any sense at all. So good luck with that. Yeah. Next up. Oh wait, I'm sorry. September 15th is when that's going to happen. It's got when the screening is going to happen. No word on when a home release is probably or re-release in 4K is going to happen for the home release. Next up.
Lucasfilm is closing its Singapore visual effects and animation studio after nearly 2 decades, potentially leading to around 300 layoffs. Boo. Lucasfilm's Industrial Light and Magic, ILM, VFX and animation studio opened in the nation in 2004 to work on Star Wars The Clone Wars. A Disney spokesperson told local outlet CNA that ILM will be consolidating its global footprint and winding down its Singapore studio due to economic factors affecting the industry. The move will impact around 300 staffers, and Disney said ILM will give employees as much notice as possible and offer opportunities to relocate to one of the company's growing studios. Always bad news to hear about layoffs. Potential even.
Yep. I'm also looking at the picture that's attached to the Deadline article. It's like, oh yeah, that's George Lucas's wife back there with Kathleen Kennedy. I don't know why that stuck to me as it was, but yeah, there it is. Because I keep forgetting about that. Oh, I was about to say, Parkinson's disease died. Great, but that's not what that article is saying. Moving right along. Speaking of the a shutdown, I should say, we potentially have an update on the Bad Batch season 3 in the midst of the strikes and that last shutdown or potential shutdown as we got. So this pretty much goes back to Star Wars Celebration, where there was a teaser for Bad Batch season 3, where they talk about what happens there in that teaser, or this article is. But apparently, as recent as June 28th, Omega actress Michelle Yang shared a photo via Instagram basically saying that the voice work was done for season 3, which I don't remember us talking about that. When that came up, we might not have even seen that. So this is kind of reiterating the fact that, hey, that's kind of still out there. And I think that was kind of as the strike was going on, but again, voice actors kind of have a different deal. So
right, animation. Yeah, people working in animation have a different deal.
Right. Next up.
So, Shazam star Zachary Levi railed against Hollywood, quote, garbage, unquote, during an appearance at Chicago Fan Expo. The actor urged attendees at the event to actively not choose to seek out garbage movies. Levi's own 2023 release, Shazam! Fury of the Gods, is one of the biggest studio flops of the year. And he says, I personally feel like the amount of content that comes out of Hollywood that is garbage, they don't care enough to actually make it great for you guys. They don't. Levi said, how many times do you watch a trailer and go, oh my God, that looks so cool? Then you go to the movie and it's like, this is what I get? So, yeah.
So I put this in here only for the fact that if you remember us, at this point, you may or may not have watched / listened to the last episode where I believe we also talked about a story involving Mr. Levi, talking about he didn't understand the reviews for his movie.
Right, a couple episodes ago, yeah.
Yeah, and I just took that to go along with this and saying, is the garbage he's talking about his own very movie?
Maybe.
Because if it is, that seems counter to maybe the what he's trying to put out there. But nevertheless, hey, funny.
I mean, we have, we can have a bunch of reactions to this. I mean,
You chose poorly.
also,
That's not how the Force works.
and also,
The world is taking a turn for the cereal.
Indeed, and also indeed. Next up, here we go. Load. Be nice if you load. Hold on a second. There we go. Power Rangers producer teases a second familiar face that might return in season 30 of Cosmic Power Rangers Cosmic Fury. So Entertainment Weekly basically says here that yes, David Yost, Billy Cranston is going to appear on the show, which I think that's news that's already been out there. But the person who may be coming back later on is the character of Mick, who's portrayed by, it says here, MVP, Kelson Henderson, and I think they call him MVP because he's been in a lot of the Power Rangers shows, or more current Power Ranger shows, I guess, more than a lot of others have at this point. Yeah, in fact, it says Henderson has actually voiced or portrayed around a dozen characters on Power Rangers over the past 20 years. So there you go. Power Rangers Cosmic Fury will kick off September 29th on Netflix, with the old team discovering new powers, much like old stuff. And apparently Lord Zed is coming back, so, old fans will, get a little taste of the old stuff for a new generation, including David Yost's Billy. Next up in Hollywood strike news, SAG-AFTRA, in solidarity with the Writers Guild, has modified its interim agreement policy to exclude any projects shot in the U.S. that are covered by the WGA. So to date, more than 200 productions have signed interim agreements, and those deals will remain in effect. This affects only, well, here's the bottom line, right? For productions taking place in the United States, SAG-AFTRA will only grant interim agreements for non-WGA covered projects. Each production will be investigated when they apply for an interim agreement to ensure only true independent productions are included. The covered projects are those not produced by or for the companies aligned with the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. This article was not clearly written. I just condensed it into a much more understandable form. That's deadline for you, getting to the nitty and the gritty. So yeah. Next up, we have on the rumor front, which sometimes we don't like to put too much rumor stuff in here, but some of the stuff is, on stuff that we were curious about. In this case, Lord of the Rings: The Rings of Power Season 2 may possibly include a battle that runs across 2 episodes, which I don't know how and or why that is news, but that's, well, I know how and why that's news, but it's in the bigger picture of Lord of the Rings productions. You can kind of see why that would not be. Mm-hmm. But also that thing's got a lot of budget to it, so I'm not surprised by it. So, but it'll be cool. So, if, as this article says, this rumor is to be believed, which the rumor is coming from some fan site, which I won't name here. So take that with the biggest grain of volcanic salt. Next up.
Alrighty, Apple TV Apple TV Plus has revealed the title of its 10-episode MonsterVerse series, Monarch: Legacy of the Monsters. Along with the official title, Apple TV Plus also unveiled a first look at the show with a handful of images. So this is the story of a family getting to grips with its checkered history and discovering how they are actually involved with the shadowy Monarch organization. So it's been, I don't know how well known it is, but it was revealed that Kurt and Wyatt Russell, father and son, will play the same character, but of course 50 years apart, as the series explores 3 generations of monster-related intrigue. And if you're not familiar with the legendary monster verse, it does span quite a bit of time because you're dealing with the events of the original Kong Skull Island movie, going forward into modern day, where Godzilla is reawakened, and then Godzilla and Kong duke it out, and so on and so forth. So there is some history to be mined here, not necessarily even retconned.
Right, because during that whole thing, we got to hear the name Monarch a good bit, and even see some folks associated with the organization, but not a whole lot about the organization itself.
Right.
Outside of let them fight.
Right. So. Interestingly, as a quick note, Monarch Legacy of Monsters was co-created by Matt Fraction, who we know from the comic book world, and Chris Black, who are both on board as executive producers, alongside Matt Shackman, who will direct the first 2 episodes. We know Matt Shackman is the director of the WandaVision Disney Plus series, as well as the upcoming Fantastic Four.
Mm-hmm. So there is some comic book synergy in there, and also especially since both the Russell guys have played in the MCU prior to
exactly
in different parts, mind you, but still.
Yes. Both, different franchises, yes.
But both playing characters we didn't care too much for, actually, oddly enough.
Right.
Anywho's, but still, yeah, I'm wait, is this gonna happen before my Apple TV Plus thing runs out?
It says fall, so let's hope.
Okay, that's potential. Next up, though, good news for fans of the Predator prequel Prey. It's getting a 4K Blu-ray. Hey, that movie was good, so that's cool.
It was good. It's a good thing that it's coming out in physical media.
Mm-hmm. Which also kind of wonders, like, wait, are they taking it off of Hulu? Because I feel like that's a thing that could happen.
It might be a precursor. Yeah, it might be a precursor. Yeah.
So yeah, and that's going to happen. Let's see, the 4K version along with standard Blu-ray and DVD options. I didn't know DVD was still being pushed, but sure. October the 3rd. So look out for that. There is nothing else in here. No word on any extras or anything, but I'm sure that'll come closer to the time of release. Next up, now we get into Anime Corner.
Oh, we're going into Anime Corner. One second here, folks. I didn't realize this was going to be Anime Corner because of the subject matter, but it is in fact Anime Corner. So.
Nice.
Netflix is. I was about to say I did some sound effect editing over the last couple of weeks, and Roddykat is still hearing new ones that I have not yet sprung upon the show.
But love where they're from.
Yes, Netflix's Scott Pilgrim Anime has released its first trailer, revealing the series' release date and title. The title is Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, and it will debut on Netflix on November 17th. The new teaser shows familiar scenes from Brian Lee O'Malley's Scott Pilgrim series of graphic novels, rendered in an animation style that stays true to O'Malley's character designs, while also reflecting the influence of classic video games and anime on his work. That's pretty cool.
Right. It's kind of like it's circling itself back around because, yeah, like I said, his influence for the book in the first place was, I think, kind of anime inspired. Oh, but mostly video games, but still. And it looks like, yes, I think we've talked about this before, but a lot of folks from the movie Scott Pilgrim versus the World is back for this.
Well, it says here in this article, I don't know if this is accurate, but it says the entire live action cast. I don't know if I think that's hyperbole, but I think all of the recognizable live action cast are back from Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
I mean,
so
mostly everybody has pretty much done stuff, though. I mean, you would know them from one thing or another.
Right. I mean, this is a gigantic list here, but they, listen, these are some real like Hollywood names, like Michael Cera as Scott, Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Ramona, Kieran Culkin as Wallace Wells, Anna Kendrick as Stacy Pilgrim, Brie Larson as Envy Adams, Allison Pill as Kim Pine, Aubrey Plaza as Julie Powers, Johnny Simmons as Young Neil, Mark Webber as Steven Stills, Ellen Wong as Knives Chow, and Satya Baba, Chris Evans, Captain America, Brandon Routh, Jason Schwartzman, and Mae Whitman as Ramona's evil exes. That's incredible that they pulled all these people in.
Well, I was about to say Captain America and the Human Torch. Also,
that's
Superman.
right.
Also, Brandon Routh, Superman, and Ray Palmer, the Atom.
Right.
And wait, I feel like he's done something else. But those are the more. Jason Schwartzman, he's out there. Mae Whitman, if you, I don't know how much live action. She's done some live action stuff before prior to this, but Katara from Avatar: The Last Airbender. So yeah, folks, people know, and obviously Aubrey Plaza, from other places, from Parks and Rec, amongst other things.
But that's pretty cool though, because you know what, that's a lot of fun. That this is going to be a much, I don't want to say faithful, but I want to say it's a much more straight on take of the source material.
I mean, also, yeah, like I said, Brie Larson, Captain Marvel, also, but the what was I gonna say about this? I feel like there had been they all got together at one point, like prior to this being announced, prior to this being announced, where they did a reading of for the movie all together, and I'm pretty sure that's out there somewhere, and it seemed like it was pretty cool. And Allison Peel,
I apologize. This is not an adaptation of the original source material. This is actually a continuation.
Right. Yeah, I think it said that somewhere.
It's down towards the end, and I did not know that.
Right.
And that's cool that Brian Lee O'Malley had an idea that was way more adventurous than just a straight adaptation of the original books. That's cool.
Right. So yeah. I was about to say, also, every time I see Allison Peel, obviously her character of Kim is the one that's the drummer always comes up, but we don't know her more currently from Star Trek Picard in her various roles.
Right.
Yeah, like that.
But that's
out there.
Well, listen, that makes me happy to see that they're all, like there are aspects of this article that talk about how the cast is still pretty tight, and it's pretty cool that they actually all got together again based on the project to say, hey, we're going to help out.
Right. I'm going to try to look up that table read and try to put it in the show notes for folks if want to check that out. But yeah, this seems like I hadn't had a chance to check out the teaser trailer yet, but I see it's gotten some people on the hook for it already, who were trying to get her not to do it for reasons which I kind of understand. So, because if you remember Scott Pilgrim the movie, there were some kind of things about about how some of that, or some of the things in that, put it that way, or one particular thing in that, I'll say. But anyway, keep going on the Scott Pilgrim train. But yeah, it kind of goes off of what Agent 70 says. Brian Lee O'Malley basically says that the anime series is not a quote word for word remake of the books, which I guess that's what Agent 70 was reading ahead to. He says on Instagram, I don't know who needs to hear this, but it's not the books. I already wrote those, and you can read them anytime. The show is its own new thing in many ways. Do not expect a word for word remake. Many fun surprises to come. So there you go. Next up.
That's cool though. I'm looking forward to that now because it's nice that that particular project brought all these people together and has kept them together.
Yes.
So
I get to hear we are a sex bomb and something's gonna happen. 1, 2, 3, 4.
all right. Next up, Bleach finally unleashes Rukia's Bankai. So Bleach 1000-Year Blood War episode 19 finally reveals Rukia Kuchiki's Bankai Haka no Togame. Okay. Listen, I have not watched any Bleach at all. Forget getting to 1000-Year Blood War Part 2.
Right.
So I just read that because that's what was there.
So I'm slight quick education for I don't know whether he's going to get to this or not, but really quickly, Rukia is one of the main characters of Bleach. She pretty much was responsible for giving the main character Ichigo his powers because he pretty much took them from her. And then there was a whole thing in Soul Society where he had to go save her for some stuff that happens after that. During the whole time, at least when I've watched Bleach, and I'm still kind of halfway through the original Bleach and hadn't gotten to 1000-Year Blood War yet, we have never seen her release her Bankai or anything. Like, we've seen her fight kind of sort of a couple of times when she kind of got back up to strength, but yeah, outside of that, we didn't really see her. So I'm sure I could click this and watch it, but I was very curious to see if she even had one ever, much less get to see it when at some point. No, I have not read the manga, so there is that. Next up, though, we're going to go over to the comic book corner. Some comic book news, excuse me.
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice.
I played that already.
You know what? It was fine with me. I wasn't gonna complain. Jason Aaron makes his DC return with Batman. So let's see. He's going to be writing Batman Off-World, which will mark the longtime Marvel writer's first mainstream DC story in 15 years. Batman Off-World is going to be a 6-issue limited series in which Batman takes an adventure off-planet, which is his first solo journey into space in the modern era, according to this article. Excuse me. There's going to be a bunch of variant covers, quite obviously, because they go ham with those things. And it's going to go on sale November 21st. Next up.
More than 17 years after he first appeared in the pages of Infinite Crisis number 3 in 2006, Jaime Reyes is making his long-awaited live-action feature film debut in DC's Blue Beetle this week.
Wait.
So, let's see here. The story is actually that DC makes the Blue Beetle, various Blue Beetle comics free to read in digital form. So let's see here. So to coincide with the release on August 18th, that is tonight/tomorrow, as of this recording, DC Comics has made digital comics free to read on DC Universe Infinite. Registration is required. Highlighted comics include Blue Beetle 2006 number 1, the New 52 Blue Beetle from 2011 number 1, and DC Rebirth of Blue Beetle 2016 number 1. There's a bunch of them, but good for Blue Beetle.
Yeah, and good for anyone who actually ever signed up for DC Universe Infinite and not paying for it. I am not that person.
Listen, I had it for a little while as a Warner Brothers reviewer type person, but they cut that off. It was only a year long.
Right. And I went and re-upped, so I do have it because there was a couple of things I kind of wanted to catch up on that I wasn't going to be able to read if not paid for. Actually, technically, I didn't, because now that I think about it, I just think I redeemed a code for something. Thanks to a video console or another. So I still got probably about 2-3 months before that gives out. So
okay,
never mind.
Shonen Jump, please keep reminding us to start subscribing.
Or if someone out there with Viz Media wants to kind of slide us a couple of codes to try out your service so that we can do some reviews of some stuff, hey.
We'd appreciate it.
Yeah. Next up, though, Blink. Calvin and Hobbes to be reissued in new format. So Andrews McNeil is wait, is that supposed to be McNeil? Not McNeil. That seems like a typo, but I don't know. Either way, the Calvin Hobbes Compendium will consist of 7 2-volume sets to be released every fall and spring through 2026, aka Get That Money, collecting the full 10-year run of the strip. The first set, containing nearly 500 strips, will be released August 29th of this year, which is another whole 12 days or so from now. Yeah, or so. These new books These new books are printed in a 9x6 landscape format, similar to the way the comics were first presented. The comics were first presented in newspapers, and each 2-book set comes in a 6x9 vertical format slipcase for easing shelving. Waterston was involved in the design of the new series and chose art for each one of the original colored Sunday comics. Cool. Calvin Hobbes is a good strip, so I'm pretty sure there are people who probably don't have copies of this yet. Next up.
Marvel Comics has announced a new 10-part story arc launching in January 2024 called Sabretooth War. Shipping bi-monthly, Sabretooth War will begin in Wolverine number 41 and wrap up in Wolverine number 50. Teaming up with Benjamin Percy on writing duties is Victor Laval, who has delivered 2 great Sabretooth solo series. The story arc will be drawn by Corey Smith and Jeff Shaw, and the series launches on January 10th. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's a thing. I never did, yeah, because they... Wait. Now something kind of may possibly make sense. Because of something that happened, I believe, in... Oh, yeah, that happened in Uncanny Avengers this week. That being the case. But anyway, well, more on that, I guess, later. Marvel previews Predator versus Wolverine. Speaking of Mr. Benjamin Percy. So, that's the thing. There was a, I think it was a teaser. Yes. Trailer happened. So we had already talked about the fact that this was going to happen when this was announced. And this is not going to hit stands until September 20th. But if you're watching the video version, you can see the poster for it with a very battered Wolverine and the Predator side by side. So that's going to be interesting. Probably would check this out. I know Agent 70 has a there's a part of it he doesn't like about it, but you know.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it's going to be fine. But yeah, September 20th is when Predator versus Wolverine is going to happen, because of course it is. Next up.
So, there's been some news here. I don't know if we have it here. I remember seeing it. Now that I think about it, I saw something in my social media feed about some movement in the editorial offices over at Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
That Tom Breevort. Did we talk about that last week?
I don't think we did. No.
Well, you know what I'm talking about, right?
No, I'm not sure if I do, actually.
There's going to be some editorial shuffle, but not in the immediate future, right? Mm-hmm. So X-Men editor Jordan D. White talked to Marvel about the recent Immortal X-Men number 14, which picks up after the massacre on Krakoa. Spoilers for the Hellfire Gala. And you can read this article. You know, he said in an interview with Marvel Comics that ideas for Immortal X-Men and its place within the Fall of X event were already in place well before the release of the 2021 X-Men event Inferno. But yeah, you know, stuff has been in the works for a while because of what's been happening in Immortal X-Men. Bottom line here is that you know, read into this if you're looking to go into Fall of X. Guess what? You're a little behind, but I think you can catch up. Roddykat and I are going to talk behind the scenes more about this editorial shuffle. I got to take a look to see if I can find some articles.
Actually,
Next up.
you don't, because I am putting said article in right now so that we can talk about it.
Okay, so we'll talk about it.
Now. So, yes. Pop that there. Live editing, folks. You got to love it. There we go. Tom Breevort to take over editing Marvel's X-Men comic line. There we go. Sorry. Let's see. It says there's been much chatter this past week concerning the quote secret mission that Dan Buckley spoke with me about that got mentioned in his newsletter. This is Tom Breevort talking. Some of it is pretty funny. No, I am not becoming ESC. That's hardly a thing that we'd announce in a newsletter, guys. CB is welcome to the position. It suits him, and he's good at it. No, the big story is that after a quarter of a century editing Avengers and its associated titles, that's how I know of, I am going to be moving away from those characters and titles and instead stepping into the world of mutants. Yes, that's right. I'm afraid it's true. I'm the X. Breevort says. Says this isn't going to happen for a good long time, a good long while yet. Still has a bunch of adventure stuff cooking, including next year's big crossover event series that needs to be seen to completion. And Jordan White and his team have a massive story that they are in the middle of that won't run its course for a long while. So what I do will grow directly out of what they're doing, provided they leave me anything to work with. Did you read that Hellfire Gala book? Cripes.
Yeah. Listen, Breevort has always been fun. He's good in person.
Yes.
Whenever I saw him at a Marvel panel, he's always fun to listen to.
Yeah, I see him out on Twitter. I don't follow his Substack yet, but I probably should. But
he's been at Marvel for 30 years. Holy cow!
Yeah, he's been there for a minute. So it's an interesting change, to say the least. So I wonder who's going to take over the Avenger stuff. Then I wonder if it's just going to shift over. But I guess we'll find out at some point soon. But yeah, there is the news.
Yeah,
I don't know.
34 years. Holy cow.
Yeah, I don't know.
He started in 89, it says.
Right.
Wow.
As an intern. Boy, I wish I could have done that.
You would have been a New Yorker this whole time.
I would have. Yeah. Yeah, no, they didn't have the whole work remotely thing.
Yeah. Crazy.
And actually, I'm going to scooch this over here. There we go. So I can.
Did you move the story I'm about to do?
No, it should be still there.
Okay. All right. So, the Infinity Watches next member. I didn't know the Infinity Watch was still a thing. Is Marvel's next cosmic powerhouse. So, in Warlock Rebirth, the Marvel Universe's latest cosmic powerhouse is invited to join Infinity Watch, and they have never been needed more. So, this has spoilers for Warlock Rebirth number 5, which is out now. I think it was out last week.
I think that's the case. I was under the impression that was one of those, retcon / hey, this is a new story set old time, but I guess not.
Same. So over the past few months, readers have seen the emergence of Eve Warlock, of course, lead to some of the most epic cosmic encounters in Marvel Comics history, and they're far from over. Not only has Eve finally come into her own as a hero, she's prepared to take on anything the cosmos has to throw at her. So she may also be on track to become the next member of Infinity Watch along the way. Okay.
All right. Sure. As you can tell, neither one of us has been reading that book, so yeah.
Right.
Now we get over into some Toy Corner business.
All right. Oh, you're looking for a transition?
Sure.
What's in the box?
Perfect. Hasbro Spider-Man, the animated series, Marvel Legends series, Smythe and Peter Parker 2-pack. We have some images and an unboxing of said 2-pack. Not Tupac.
Oh, no.
Get it?
Get it?
Pac. You were with me on that one. I appreciate it. But yeah, you can see the images as I flip through here. You got Peter Parker with camera and his web slinger. You got Smythe shirtless with his horn thing, whatever. There's Peter. There's back of Peter. There's Smythe. There's back of Smythe. There's I guess the whole set with Spidey, Peter, Smythe, and another Peter. And yeah, there you go. So, and this is going to be, or is, excuse me, $52.99. I mean, as much as I'd like that era of Spider-Man, I don't know if I would get these figures. But hey, it's out there for those who would. What do you think?
They're all right. They're all right. It's not a required purchase for me.
Right. Yeah. Unless you're looking for, a Peter Parker with a camera.
Right. And we have one already.
Do we?
But this is like animated style.
Right. Oh.
We have a Peter with glasses with a camera.
There's also one here also, so yeah. So yeah. But hey, if you don't have one, there you go.
Right.
But next up.
So did we skip this story? I actually wanted to do this story.
Which
The
story?
Secret Wars Battle World Saturday morning cartoon variant.
Fudge, we sure did. Go for it.
Alrighty. So Marvel Superhero Secret Wars Battle bleh, I can speak. It is late, folks. Battle World number 1 and number 2 get the classic 80s cartoon treatment in new variant covers. So we're all familiar with the Marvel Superhero Secret Wars, which united powerful heroes and powerful villains for a 12-issue limited series set on Battle World. So celebrating the 40th anniversary of Secret Wars, the 4-issue limited series Battle World is written by industry icon Tom DeFalco and illustrated by Pat Olive, artist Sean Galloway, whose Saturday morning variant series has covered various issues, has created a new connecting cover in the style of classic Saturday morning cartoons. And it's an homage. They're an homage to the cover of Secret Wars, the incredible, timeless cover of Marvel Superhero Secret Wars number 1 by Mike Zeck.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah, I saw this earlier, and I was like, yeah, I got to put this in there for clearly obvious reasons.
That's a really cool adaptation, in Saturday morning animated style.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just think if they actually had something like that back then.
Mm-hmm.
So that'd have been cool. But yeah, and that's going to happen. Did you say? I can't remember.
Oh, I did not say. Oh, I already closed the article. Well, this series is coming out, no?
Yes, November 22nd.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. So we talked about this before, but yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that for that. So, all right, now then, back to what we got going on with the Toy Corner stuff. Dynamite offers Fire and Ice game. He says that it's based on the animated film by Ralph Bakshi and Frank Franzetta, which can be played as a board game or as a role-playing game. This is news coming out of Gen Con, of course, so not surprising. The game is set to release in May. The game actually, the game is inspired by the film's screenplay, which was written by a couple of names you might know, Roy Thomas and Jerry Conway, which chronicles the plight of the Kingdom of Fire against the glacial sorcery of the evil Nord Necron. This was an old 80s thing. I can't remember the last time I've actually even seen that thing, if ever. So that's part of that I did not know, actually. Both Marvel staples. Let's see. But yeah, apparently back to the game though, it is the heroes of Firekeep struggle against the armies of Ice Peak against multiple maps. It uses a combination of card play and dice to resolve battles from the film using miniatures. So, if that hits any of your check boxes, you can have at that when it releases. There is no date. It's a Kickstarter campaign from that is going to that is happening this month. I guess it may or may not already be going on, but I don't see a link to it. Anyway, next up.
Is this some video game stuff?
It is.
Okay. So, Fall Guys. I'm like, is this the Lee Majors TV show? Fall Guys reveals Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles crossover. So, developer Mediatronic is no stranger to crossovers in Fall Guys. So, it's gotten some crossovers from the WWE and so on. Recently, Mediatronic announced an upcoming crossover with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that will kick off yesterday. The start of this recording on August 17th. So the drop includes costumes for all 4 of the Turtle brothers, and players will also be able to pick up themed wearables, emotes, a celebration, and more. The bundle will be in the Fall Guys shop until August 31st, so there is some time to jump in and get yourself some turtle power in this game. What is Fall Guys about, if you don't mind my asking? Or if you know. If you don't know, I'll...
No, I do actually know. I've played a good bit of it. So Fall Guys is pretty much a think of it as a multiplayer game show, let's just say. It's you versus a bunch of other people going round for round until you either make it to the end of the round or into the last round and be the last one standing, or you get knocked out some kind of way. There's a bunch of mini games that you end up doing, going against other people. And people dress up. Now, you got your characters pretty much little bean-looking figures, and that's got costumes and whatnot that you can get. And they definitely have been doing crossovers with other things that you could with other properties that you could do. So it's a fun game. It's a pretty fun game. I think. So, and it's still going strong. So that's pretty good.
I'm smiling right now
because
guess what?
Okay.
The latest updates to Threads allow us to switch between accounts.
Oh, nice.
It's about time.
Congrats to the 5 of you that are on Threads. Let me stop.
Oh, wait, I apologize. I was looking at the wrong thing.
Oh, false alarm?
Yeah, false alarm. Damn it, Threads.
Maybe soon, sir. Maybe soon.
Come on, Threads. Come on, Threads. False alarm. I thought it was something else.
So, yeah, I don't know if you heard any of what I said about that, about the game, but yeah, that's that. But
I did. I heard that stuff.
Okay.
That's, you know what? I'm glad people like this stuff.
It's a free-to-play game if anybody's interested in it, hadn't played it. But at this point, anybody's playing it's playing it. Next up, though, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin officially revealed through a teaser trailer recently. This was at THQ Nordic's digital showcase, which I knew I keep forgetting to check out something to see what else they had going on. But we've talked about this particular video game that is coming, and now there's a teaser trailer for it that folks can check out. If you don't know about who The Last Ronin is, man, you're behind on on a good story. That's all I can say. But there is doesn't have a release window, so we don't know when it's coming out. But we do know it's coming to PlayStation 5, Xbox Series XS, and SX and S, and the PC, according to this article. The title will feature a mature tone, which should be exciting for fans of the comic series, but Rosen, who I guess is the head of Paramount Global, made it clear back in March that the game was years away from release, so we probably won't see this until probably 2025, 26, I guess. So, and sometimes that happens. But yeah. And last but not least, the official Renegade Game Studios website has been updated with the announcement of an upcoming Transformers Robo Rally board game. So Robo Rally is a racing board game which now will introduce Transformers characters into the game. So let's see here.
So coming in 2024, Renegade will release the Transformers Robo Rally game featuring classic Robo Rally gameplay mixed with iconic Transformers characters like Optimus Prime and Megatron. Players will be able to choose between 6 different Transformers robots, each with their own personal upgrades that give them unique advantages and identities. Players will convert between bot and alt or vehicle modes to better navigate the many roads, buildings, and obstacles that make up each race. The game will also feature 4 completely new double-sided game boards representing the city and desert landscapes. Okay, so that's cool. There are no images of the game yet, but they'll be out. So you know what? I know that there are some people that will absolutely, positively look forward to that.
Why are you looking at me like that? Oh wait. Oh, okay. That's just the game. Okay, never mind. Yeah, I saw that. So this came along the same line, same time as that G.I. Joe's Axis and Allies game that we talked about last show.
Right.
But I didn't see this then. So I'm like, huh, that's interesting.
I saw that was tacked on at the end. I was like, oh wait, I guess that was related.
Right. They must have just tacked this part in. I'm like, okay, that's a little lazy, but all right, sure. And that, folks, is it for the news, actually. So can we get one last ad read?
Our last ad read of the night is for Funko, Fun at First Sight. Your home for exclusive collectibles such as their world famous Pop Vinyl bobbleheads, apparel including t-shirts, hats, and socks, and brand merchandise such as custom DIY pop figures, art books, and skateboards. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can enjoy 10% off your entire purchase when shopping at Funko. To place your first order with 10% off and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us. That's cspn.us. Then click on the Keep Our Podcast Free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down to the Funko link and place your order. When you get to the checkout, put in the offer code SHOP10 for your 10% off discount. Funko through cspn.us. Do it today. Oh, goodness. Where's my cash register when I need it?
And that, folks, brings us to the end of another show here. We will be back next week for another show. There was, I feel like there was something I'm neglecting to mention in response to something Agent 70 said, like not too long ago, but I don't remember what it is. So it's probably just as well. Probably some dumb reference none of us needs. Oh wait, now I remember the Unknown Stuntman. This was that game has nothing to do with the Unknown Stuntman.
Oh, the Fall Guy, yes.
Who made Eastwood look so fine.
There you go.
I still remember that show, and I remember the theme song, and I'm not gonna sing it because you can go on YouTube and get all of that stuff. Anyway,
wait, was Heather Thomas in that one, or was it Heather Lock? It was Heather Thomas.
Wait, no, it was Heather Locklear.
Was in the Fall Guy? I can't remember.
Yes, I think it was Heather Locklear. There might have been might have been 2 of them, but I'm fairly certain it was Heather Locklear. I feel relatively confident.
Yeah, it was Heather Locklear. It was Heather Locklear. Good for us on remembering Heather Locklear.
You know, some things your childhood, man. Some things you don't forget. You may not forget Daisy Duke. You definitely may not forget Heather Locklear, depending on who you are.
Yeah. Shout out to Linda Carter.
And also Linda Carter, especially. Yes, indeed. So, folks, like I said, we'll be back next week. There's a few other names I could have put in there for my own edification, but we're not going to do that. Next week, we got Ahsoka, Star Wars Ahsoka premiering. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. And yeah, it is coming out on Wednesday, so we'll definitely be able to talk about, or at the very least, talk a little bit about the show. We can't get into spoilers, but hey, when do we ever when stuff like that happens?
Right.
So with that, folks, I have been Roddykat. You can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can find me at News Nerds Need on Twitter. You can find me at CBCaps on Instagram. I am not calling it X. Screw that company. Agent_7 on Twitter and Instagram and Threads.
Multiple accounts, Threads, get on it.
Someone needs to do a hostile takeover of X leverage style. I would appreciate it. Thank you. If you got some jazzy music to go along with it, I would also appreciate that as well. Yeah. Let's go steal a social media company. PCN_dirt on Twitter, Pop Culture Network on Twitter, popculturenetwork.com is all those umbrella sites they're in. And Tim DOGG98 on Twitter, CB Chron on Twitter, which is the Comic Book Chronicles Twitter account, the Kliq Nation on Twitter, that's TheKliqNation, thekliqnation.com, and over at comicbook.com, where he was over there writing his face off. Look for him under Timothy Adams, folks. With that, you can find this here podcast on the Coastal Podcast Network, that's ESPN.us.
Do it today.
You can also find us on your podcast perusal place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Coastal Podcast Network SoundCloud page.
Make sure to click like and subscribe and leave us all the positive 5-star reviews, especially on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah. And of course, mostly every Thursday night, 9:30ish Eastern Standard Time or Daylight Savings Time. Either way, we're in the East first. And when the East is in the house, you should come equipped. But
danger.
Exactly. But we record on that day at that time on the YouTube channel of The Kliq Nation. That's youtube.com/TheKliqNation and twitch.tv/Comic Book Chronicles.
Make sure to hit like and subscribe and click on the notification button so that you are notified when we are on recording.
Indeed. Doom, 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 doom. There we go. And with that, folks, this has been the Comic Book Chronicles. Peace.
Peace. One. Wakanda forever!